Abraham had two sons, or so many believe: Isaac, the child of promise; Ishmael, the son cast into the wilderness. Two brothers, two nations, two destinies. But what if I told you there was more? What if history, tradition, and even modern teachings have overlooked something? Someone? Hidden within the ancient scrolls is a name rarely spoken, a woman scarcely remembered, a wife, a mother, a matriarch of nations. Her name, Keturah. Who was she? Where did she come from? And why have her descendants, men who shaped the ancient world, been buried in the sands of time? Today, we embark on a journey through history, scripture, and forgotten bloodlines to uncover the truth. Because this is the story of Abraham's forgotten wife and the children who shaped the world, perhaps more than we ever realized. Have you ever heard of Keturah before? Do you know where her descendants are today? Comment below. We're about to uncover the hidden lineage of Abraham's forgotten wife. Sarah was gone, the woman who had walked beside Abraham through the long years, the one who had laughed at the impossible and given birth to the son of promise. Her tent now stood empty. Isaac, the heir, was growing into his role, but Abraham was not done. His journey was not over. In the shadow of Sarah's absence, a new chapter began. A man well over 100 years old, a legacy already sealed in the covenant with God. Abraham did something unexpected. He took another wife. Her name was Keturah. Who was Keturah? The Bible speaks her name, yet only in passing. A few verses, a handful of words, and then she fades into the background of history. But what little is said about her carries profound implications. In Genesis 25, 1-6, she is introduced without prelude. Then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bore him Zimran, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Ishbak, and Shuah. In 1 Chronicles 1:32, the text refers to Keturah not as a wife, but as a concubine. So which was she? A wife, or merely a secondary partner in Abraham's household? Was she honored or overlooked? In the world of the patriarchs, marriage was not always as simple as a single bond between one man and one woman. There were full wives, those bound by covenant and public recognition. And then there were concubines, women who bore children for powerful men, but whose status was lower in the household. The word wife is used in Genesis 25:1. Yet later, in 1 Chronicles, Keturah is demoted to concubine. Why the discrepancy? Some scholars suggest that Keturah was a concubine at first, but became a full wife after Sarah's death. Others argue that she was never truly on equal footing with Sarah, and her children were never meant to carry Abraham's covenant promise. But there's another theory. Some say Keturah was not a new wife at all. Some say she had been in Abraham's life long before Sarah was even gone. Some even say she was someone we already know. The ancient Jewish Midrash presents a radical claim that Keturah and Hagar were the same person, that after Sarah's death, Abraham brought Hagar back into his home, giving her a new name, Keturah, meaning fragrance or incense. The reasoning: Hagar was sent away, but never declared dead. Keturah appears suddenly, without any backstory. The name Keturah suggests purification, as if she had been restored to honor. Could it be that the woman cast out into the wilderness was the same woman who returned to bear Abraham's final sons? Or is this simply an attempt to tie loose ends in a story already filled with complexity? Other traditions reject the idea that Keturah was Hagar. Instead, they suggest she was of noble lineage, perhaps a Canaanite or Arabian princess, a woman of high status, but one whose children were never meant to inherit, alongside Isaac. Some historical records link her children to the Midianites, the Jokshanites, and the tribes of Arabia, suggesting that her sons played key roles in the rise of powerful trade empires. Whoever Keturah was, one thing is certain: her children would not be forgotten. Abraham's story was never just about one son, it was about nations, and with Keturah, new nations were born. Keturah's sons: Zimran, possibly linked to Arabian tribes; Jokshan, father of Sheba and Dedan, names that reappear in later biblical history. Medan, little is known, but his name suggests influence among early desert tribes. Midian, the most famous, the ancestor of the Midianites, who would later clash with Israel. Ishbak, a name lost to history, yet his lineage may have continued in the regions east of Canaan. Shua, his name appears in connections to the Edomites. These were not just footnotes in Abraham's life. These were men who would shape trade routes, influence cultures, and, in some cases, even become adversaries to Israel. How do they differ from Isaac and Ishmael? Isaac was the son of promise, the heir to God's covenant. Ishmael, though blessed, was sent away to form his own destiny. But what about Keturah's sons? They were not cursed, they were not cast out, but they were also not chosen. Instead, they were given gifts, resources, lands, and freedom. And then, they were sent eastward, away from Isaac's inheritance. Genesis 25:6. What became of them? Where did they go? And how did their descendants leave a mark on history? As the years passed, their influence would stretch across continents, and in time, their paths would cross with the children of Israel, sometimes as allies, sometimes as enemies. The story of Keturah's sons was only just beginning. Do you think Keturah's sons were part of God's greater plan? Or were they simply forgotten branches of Abraham's lineage? Let us know in the comments. Where did Keturah's descendants go? They were given gifts, they were sent away, but they were never forgotten. In Genesis 25:6, Abraham sent the sons of his concubines, including Keturah's children, eastward unto the east country. But what became of them? Where did they settle? And how did their descendants shape the world that followed? The story of Keturah's lineage is not one of disappearance, but of transformation. Her sons spread across lands that would later become the centers of trade, culture, and even conflict. Their descendants walked the same deserts that would later be traversed by prophets, kings, and conquerors. To understand their impact, we must follow their paths, from the ancient Arabian deserts to the trading centers of the East, from the Midianite strongholds to the heart of biblical history itself. The Bible gives us names, but history reveals their journeys. Jokshan, one of Keturah's 6 sons, became the father of 2 significant names in history, Sheba and Dedan. These names resurface again and again in ancient texts, linked to Arabian tribes, powerful trade routes, and even biblical prophecy. Sheba is perhaps the most well-known. His descendants are often linked to the kingdom of Sheba, famed for its wealth, trade, and the legendary visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon. But was this the same Sheba, or were there multiple groups bearing this name? Some scholars argue that Sheba's lineage split into multiple tribes, some settling in southern Arabia, modern-day Yemen, while others migrated toward northern Arabia and beyond. Meanwhile, Dedan's descendants are often associated with the North Arabian tribes. Their name appears in the prophetic books of the Bible, mentioned in Ezekiel and Isaiah as traders, caravan leaders, and inhabitants of wealthy desert cities. But Jokshan's line was just one branch of Keturah's growing influence. If any of Keturah's sons left an undeniable mark on biblical history, it was Midian. His descendants, the Midianites, would play a pivotal role in the unfolding story of Israel. The Midianites appear first in Genesis, but their true influence emerges in Exodus. When Moses fled Egypt, he sought refuge among them. He found a home, a wife, and an unexpected spiritual guide. Jethro, a Midianite priest, became a father to Moses. His daughter, Zipporah, became Moses' wife. And in the wilderness of Midian, Moses received his first encounter with the God of Israel, on a mountain that would later be known as Sinai. The Midianites were not just wanderers. They were priests, traders, warriors, and at times, even allies of Israel. But this alliance would not last forever. The Midianites had once given Moses refuge, but years later, their descendants would stand against Israel. What happened? Did the Midianites become corrupt? Or was this a battle over destiny? A struggle between the descendants of Abraham, each seeking their own promised land? As time passed, the name of Midian faded from history. But did they disappear? Or did they simply blend into the rising civilizations of the Middle East? Some scholars believe the Midianites were absorbed into the Nabatean kingdom, the builders of Petra. Others suggest they intermarried with Arabian tribes, becoming part of the Bedouin legacy. What do historians say? What evidence remains of Keturah's people? From trade routes to forgotten kingdoms, the children of Keturah did not vanish. They evolved, they adapted, and in many ways, their legacy continues today. Were the sons of Keturah meant for something greater? Were they ever part of God's larger plan? Or were they always destined to walk a different path, one parallel to Israel, yet never fully converging? Do you believe Keturah's descendants still have an impact on the world today? Could modern tribes or nations trace their roots back to her sons? Let us know in the comments. The story of Keturah and her sons is more than just ancient history. It's a mystery that stretches from the pages of Genesis to the world we live in today. The sons of Keturah were sent away. They were given gifts, but not the inheritance of Isaac. Yet, their role in God's divine blueprint remains one of the greatest overlooked questions in biblical history. Did God's promises extend to them? Do their descendants still carry a part of Abraham's spiritual legacy? And could they hold a hidden key to understanding prophecy in the modern world? Throughout Scripture, God's covenant with Abraham is clear. Through Isaac, the chosen seed would come. But Isaac was not Abraham's only son. Ishmael was blessed with great nations. And what of Keturah's sons? Were they included in the divine plan? God's blessings were not confined to one son alone. In Genesis 17:4, he tells Abraham, "You will be the father of many nations." But who are those nations? And where do Keturah's sons fit into this prophetic puzzle? Did God's blessings extend beyond Isaac and Ishmael? We know that Isaac was the son of promise, the one through whom the covenant of salvation would come. We know that Ishmael too was blessed, becoming the father of 12 princes and the Arab peoples. But what of Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuah? Though Keturah's sons did not receive the same inheritance as Isaac, they were not forgotten. The Bible hints at their ongoing presence in history, sometimes as allies, sometimes as adversaries, but always as part of the unfolding story of redemption. Why does this matter today? Thousands of years later, the world is still shaped by the descendants of Abraham, but the story is far from over. 3 major world religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all trace their spiritual heritage back to Abraham. The conflicts, alliances, and tensions in the Middle East today cannot be fully understood without acknowledging this shared ancestry? Could the division that began in Abraham's own family still be shaping the borders of nations and the course of history? Some traditions suggest that Keturah's descendants became key players in the development of ancient Arab civilization. Could they have influenced the rise of Islam, just as Isaac's descendants shaped Judaism and Christianity? The Bible tells us that God's plan for the nations was not limited to one people, but that through Abraham, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. Could Keturah's line be part of that divine mission? Prophecy speaks of nations rising and falling, of forgotten peoples resurfacing in the end times, of sons returning home. Some believe that the nations of Sheba and Dedan, mentioned in Ezekiel 38:13, could refer to Keturah's lineage, suggesting their role in future global events. Others look to Isaiah 60 verse 6, where Sheba is seen bringing gold and incense in worship. Could this be a sign of their return to God's plan? Keturah's story is more than a forgotten footnote in Genesis. It is a story of legacy, of nations, and of prophecy. And perhaps it is still unfolding before our eyes. What do you think? Could the sons of Keturah still play a role in the grand design of history? Have we overlooked their impact for too long? Join the conversation in the comments below. For centuries, Keturah's story has been overshadowed by the more familiar narratives of Sarah and Hagar. But history tells us she was far more than just a footnote in Abraham's life. She was a mother of nations, a key figure in the unfolding plan of God. And her descendants? They shaped ancient civilizations, influenced trade, and may still play a role in biblical prophecy today. Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, 6 names often overlooked, yet their impact stretches across centuries. Their descendants traveled, settled, and built kingdoms. They encountered Israel, influenced culture, and, perhaps, even played a part in shaping the world we know today. But why does this matter to us now? Because every detail in Scripture is there for a reason. No name is included by accident. And if Keturah's children were part of God's design, then understanding their story could give us a deeper insight into biblical history, prophecy, and even modern events. Perhaps Keturah's children were not just a forgotten branch of Abraham's family tree, but a crucial piece of the puzzle that still affects us today. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Were Keturah's descendants more influential than we realize? Could they hold clues to biblical prophecy? Or have we overlooked their impact for too long? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden figures of the Bible, make sure to subscribe for more content just like this. We're bringing you the untold stories, the lost histories, and the hidden prophecies that shape our understanding of Scripture today.